Silverquill Statement is pretty good right out of the box, but I think that there are 10 cards that we can swap for less than $20 to make this deck more competitive. Let's take a look at the 10 cards that I would upgrade from Silverquill Statement, and the video starts right now.
Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below.
Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. Today we're going to look at Silverquill Statement, the new pre-constructed deck, and how I would upgrade it with just $20. But before we do, if you would, go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. We're going to talk about some higher value targets after the $20 upgrades that you may want to keep on your radar. Let's take a look at this deck. Silverquill Statement is led by Breena the Demagogue. One black, one white, one other for a 1/3 flying bird warlock that says whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. I really like how they've built into this deck a political sub-theme, a little bit of a +1/+1 counter sub-theme, and a recursion sub-theme. I want to take the +1/+1 counter strategy out and put it to the side and focus on the politics and the recursion. So the first card that I want to take out is Necropolis Regent. 3 black, 3 other for a 6/5 flying vampire. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. If you're focused on just flyers, this actually might be a pretty decent card, but for what it is, you do need 3 black mana to cast it, and it's 6 for a big flyer. So if we're just going to focus on a recursion sub-theme, I think that we should put Buried Alive in this deck. 1 black, 2 other, search your library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, and then shuffle your library. Go get the 3 cards that you need right now. They've got utility effects on them, or just go get your 3 best creatures, put them into the graveyard, and get them ready to be recurred right onto the battlefield, and they're ready to attack and do their thing. That's only a $4 card right now, so I think that it's well worth it, especially if you're playing a graveyard theme. Angel of Serenity is 7 mana for a 5/6 flying angel. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile up to 3 or other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyards, and when it leaves, those come back. Again, this is fine. I like the temporary removal. It's a really expensive card CMC wise, but it does have a cool effect until it gets aced and then all the stuff just comes back. So I think that we should run Unburial Rites. Let's back up Buried Alive with Unburial Rites. For 5 mana, we're returning a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And for flashback of 4, 1 white and 3 other, we get to do it again. This is exactly the kind of strategy that I want to build into this deck. I want those big creatures to come out of our deck into our graveyard and get recurred so that we can play them earlier or recur threats that our opponents have dealt with and don't want to have to deal with again. 1 white, 4 other for a 2/3 human soldier. Whenever it enters a battlefield, you bolster 2, so you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control. And then whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. This could be good in an aggressive strategy that's focused on putting a lot of +1/+1 counters all over the place. However, I just don't think that's the route I want to go with this deck. I want to go with more of a attacking from the air or politics or recursion graveyard kind of theme. So let's put Court of Grace in there. We've got this attack trigger on Breena, and so we do want hopefully some flyers that can get through. And this one makes a lot of them for cheap. For just 4 mana, Court of Grace enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. If you're the Monarch, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. So whenever a player attacks 1 or more of your opponents, Breena's ability, that counts us. If that opponent has more life than at least another one of our opponents, we get to draw a card and put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature that we control, growing our line even though that's not our focus. Really, we just want to be drawing cards and incentivizing our opponents to attack each other. Court of Grace really helps with that. It's only $2, so I think it's definitely worth finding a copy of this and putting it into the deck. Sunscorch Regent is a 5 mana 4/3 flying dragon. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it and you gain a life. In a vacuum, this is a decent creature. You know, it kind of grows over time. It's going to be the target of removal eventually, but other than that, it's just sort of a, you know, big silly flyer that can gain you some life very slowly. So with the politics sub-theme, let's put Mystic Barrier into this deck. Ghostly Prison is already in this deck, and so any other de-incentivization, if that's a word, that we can put on our opponents to attack us, the better. Mystic Barrier is 1 white, 4 other for an enchantment. It enters the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, choose left or right. Each player can only attack the opponent seated nearest him or her in the last chosen direction, and planeswalkers controlled by that player. So we've got this wall now that's saying you can only attack this way, you can only attack this way, and we get to decide how that works and when it works. I love Mystic Barrier. It's super cheap, and it definitely plays into the political sub-theme that this deck has. I definitely want to put it in here. 2 white, 2 other for a Gideon with 4 loyalty. You +1 to put a loyalty counter on it for each creature target opponent controls. 0 turns Gideon into an indestructible creature that has power and toughness equal to the loyalty counters on it, and you prevent all damage that will be dealt to him. And for -15, you can exile all other permanents. This is a good planeswalker, but I want to go more synergistic, and I want to run Liliana, Death's Majesty. 2 black, 3 other for a 5 loyalty Liliana, +1 to create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. -3 to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. And -7 to destroy all non-zombie creatures. That -7 doesn't happen a lot, but it can get pretty ridiculous when it does. What we really want here is a 5 mana recursion spell, so you play it for 5 and activate that -3 with upside. We're going to bring a creature back from the graveyard to the battlefield that is a zombie. We just get that for that 5 mana. Then if Liliana is still around the next time turn becomes ours, we can start creating 2/2 black zombies and putting cards into our library that hopefully we can recur further. Liliana is great. Liliana's $5 to pick up right now, and I think that it definitely has a home in Breena the Demagogue. Together Forever is one of my favorite +1/+1 counter cards, and sort of in a vacuum, this card might work by itself. 2 white for an enchantment. It enters the battlefield. You support 2, so you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Then you can pay 1 to choose target creature with a counter on it, and when that creature dies this turn, return that card to its owner's hand. It's fine. We're going to be putting some +1/+1 counters on creatures because of Breena's ability already. We can also put the counters on some creatures with Together Forever itself, but we do want a sort of like recurable way to get counters onto creatures if we're going to be playing Together Forever, not just when it enters the battlefield, because then once that creature comes back and survives, it goes back into our hand. When we replay it, we don't have another way to get +1/+1 counters on it other than our commander, especially since I'm sort of like carving out all of the +1/+1 counter strategies. So that's my explanation for why I want to take a good card out of this deck and just put Capital Punishment in here. This card is fun. This card is super, super political. 2 black, 4 other for a sorcery of Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player either votes for death or for taxes. Each opponent sacks a creature for each death vote and discards a card for each taxes vote. So if all 3 of your opponents don't want to sacrifice creatures, fine, you can all discard 3 cards. Same way with creatures. If nobody wants to discard cards, fine, sack creatures. It normally is a mix of the 2, but I always love the reactions of political decks that aren't super overtly just crushingly punishing, and Capital Punishment is one of those. It's a fun card. It's not like ridiculously overwhelming. $1 to make this change, and I think it's a cool card. Fane the Broker is a very interesting legendary, but I just don't like where he fits in this deck. 1 black, 2 other for a 3/3 human warlock. You can tap, sack a creature to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. You can tap, remove a counter from a creature you control to create a treasure token. You can tap, sack an artifact to create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. And you can pay 4 to untap Fane the Broker. Fane knows how to do a lot. I'm working right now on a deck build for Fane because I really like our Broker Human Warlock here, but I just don't like it in this Breena deck. I think that it does stuff and it would be fun to do that stuff, but to what end would be my question with the Broker in the Breena deck. So let's take it out and put in Council's Judgment. Here's another Will of the Council card. 2 white, 1 other for a sorcery. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So there's a possibility that you get a sort of 2-for-1 with this. Most often it's just going to kind of, everybody's going to vote for that one permanent if they know what's best. But sometimes you can get a split vote and hit multiple permanents with this. and I love that it exiles those permanents. This is only a $2 card, and this is like one of the best political removal spells that you can run, because unless your opponents completely just say, no, I want that one permanent from that one opponent to stay on the battlefield, you're going to be able to remove pretty much anything you want from the game. Bold Plagiarist is a new card, 1 black, 3 other for a 2/2 vampire rogue with flash. Whenever an opponent puts 1 or more counters on a creature they control, they put the same number and kind of counters on Bold Plagiarist. I don't like cards that you can't count on. I want this card to do things, and this card requires that my opponents are doing things so that then I can do things in most cases. I just don't like cards like that personally, and so this is going to be an auto cut for me 9.999 times out of 10. I want to take out Bold Plagiarist and put in Wishclaw Talisman. Let's get a little tutor in this deck. Let's go and get our board wipe. Let's go and get our targeted removal that's going to help us in a pinch. Yes, we then have to give it to one of our opponents, but Wishclaw Talisman is a fun political. You can make a deal with it. You can like say, hey, I'm going to send this to you. Who should I send this to? Do you have an answer for that thing over there? Do you promise to get that answer with that thing over there? It's a very fun political tutor, and it's a cheap tutor at only $1. You at least are going to be able to go and get that answer that you critically need right now, so that maybe you can even win the game right then and there. Secret Rendezvous is a card that I just don't like from Strixhaven Precons. I've been taking this card out of all of the decks that it's popped up in. I want to take it out here and replace it with Austerity Command, because Austerity Command is an awesome card. 2 white, 4 other, choose 2. Destroy all artifacts, all enchantments, all creatures with CMC 3 or less, all creatures with CMC 4 or greater. This is a fantastic sorcery. It's only $2. Take Secret Rendezvous out, put Austerity Command in, and you're never going to regret it. You're always going to love when you draw this card, I promise. The last card before we look at some of the higher value targets that you need to keep on your radar is Silverquill Campus. This is another one that I've taken out of every single Precon deck because I just don't like the card. I think it's slow, and I don't think the payoff for it coming into play tapped is worth it with just the ability to scry 1. So for 50 cents, you can go and get Memorial to Folly. It fits in with the theme of the deck and lets you return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If your opponents happen to deal with some big threat you've got, you can just get it right back. So I told you I wanted to go over some higher value targets. These cards wouldn't quite fit the budget, but I think need to stay on your radar. The first of which for $10 is Luminark Ascension, a white and 1 other for an enchantment at the beginning of each opponent's end step. If you didn't lose life this turn, you can put a quest counter on it. And for 2, after you've activated it with 4 or more quest counters, you can create a 4/4 white token with flying. This card is bonkers. This card fits perfectly into this deck. You want to be repeatedly creating cheap flyers so that you can attack, trigger your Breena abilities, get those cards drawn, get those creatures growing, and really do some work against your opponents. $10 for Luminark Ascension. I think you should go find it. Shouldered Whispering One is one of my favorite creatures of all time in EDH. $20 for a 2 black, 5 other 6/6 Praetor with Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, so synergy with what we want to be doing. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacks a creature, so residual removal tacked on to exactly what we want to be doing, tacked on to a swamp walking 6/6 that can probably get through and do some damage itself. Shieldred is a house, and I never ever regret seeing her when I draw her. Finally, No Mercy. 2 black, 2 other for an enchantment. Whenever a creature successfully deals damage to you, destroy it. This is the Don't Attack Me card of Don't Attack Me cards. $40 for No Mercy. This card is desperately in need of a reprint right now. But as far as a higher value target, this is a fantastic enchantment. You're always going to love seeing it in Breena. Those are the upgrades. Let's close the book. Let me know down below how you're upgrading your Silverquill Precon. These decks have been getting stronger and stronger. I've been tweeting about it. I've been talking about it in our Discord. On your way out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. If you want to join our Discord, link is down in the description below. Other than that, I'm tapped out, and I'll catch you later.